We are continuing on the halachot of the 3 weeks Ben HaMesarim, and today we will discuss the halachot of listening to music, participating in simchas and weddings and happy occasions, a duration of these 3 weeks. And the halacha is because of a minhag, because these days are heavy days of mourning, and the mazal of Klal Yisrael, so to speak, is not on a high. The minhag is not to get married during the course of 3 weeks, from Shivasar B'Tammuz until Tisha B'Av, and that's the minhag of the Ashkenazim as well. It's not just the Sfaradim. Now, in Eretz Yisrael, Ashkenazim are more stringent, generally speaking, as we mentioned before, in the halachot of the 3 weeks. In Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim, the minhag has been to allow weddings until Rosh Chodesh Av. So that actually has a whole history to it. Chacham Obadia, in his early years as a chief rabbi, he wanted a leverage with the restaurants and so on, for them to restrict themselves to certain standards, and instead he said, "I'll give you that you could be open from Shvasar B'Tammuz until Rosh Chodesh Av," because that was the old minhag, selling meat and having weddings in the wedding halls and catering and so on and so forth. So that it has a lot of interesting history behind it. But that was the old minhag in Yerushalayim, to allow for weddings until Rosh Chodesh Av for the Sfaradim, and from Rosh Chodesh Av until Tisha B'Av, you don't want, that's asur already, to have weddings. Rosh Chodesh itself, even though that it is Rosh Chodesh, it's a happy day, still is included in the isur itself. And however you slice this, if it's a young man that has never been married, bachur shadayin lo kiyem pirya v'rivya, then meikar adin is mutar to get married even in those days, but the minhag is to stay away from it. No one wants to start their life in a period of time that is not it's not a good mazal, and therefore, even though the mikar adin there's room to be lenient, the practice is to stay away from it. But to make irusin is mutar, to kind of like seal the deal of a shidduch and get quote unquote engaged, what we call engagement nowadays, that would be mutar even after Rosh Chodesh Av, even in the 9 days. You could do that even on Tisha B'Av itself, whether it's the night of Tisha B'Av or the day of Tisha B'Av, still would be mutar. The Rambam writes in Chod Ishu, this really is Gemara, Mishnah Gemara in Masechet Moed Katan, Daf Yud Chet, because the Gemara says Shema Yekadmenu Achir, that you want, if you want to seal the deal, you do it because there are other people out there, and you want to, if this is a girl or a boy that you feel comfortable with, and you see yourself living with them as your spouse, so that's something that you don't want to risk other people getting involved. And as history has it, things could change last minute and so on, and who knows, you don't want to wait another 10 days and so on. So therefore, you could get engaged even on Tisha B'Av itself. The halacha has it. So that's one basic restriction when it comes to getting married on these days. But the Ashkenazim, they are, as we mentioned, more stringent. That already from Shivasar B'Tammuz, they stay away from this until after Tisha B'Av. And if you have a young man that has never been married, has not done Pirya V'Rivya yet, and wants to get married the night of Shivasar B'Tammuz, right? The night of the fast. Tomorrow is the fast of Shivasar B'Tammuz. Then it has been debated within the poskim whether it's mutar or asur. A person should ask their questions. Again, these are not necessarily the common practice. Is not to have a wedding on the night of Shivasar B'Tammuz, but extenuating circumstances when the family issues or whatnot, that they won't be able to do it afterwards, and so on. They should ask a question. There is room to be mekel in certain extenuating circumstances. Same goes with dancing and listening to music and being happy and getting together in that mindset. Also, we stay away from in the entirety of Ben HaMetzarim from Shivasar Tammuz until Tisha B'Av, even if the dancing is without music, right? Just the dancing itself, like some people say, oh, we'll have a cappella. First of all, a cappella music is not so simple if it's considered a non-music, because many are machmir, even b'shira b'peh, and parenthetically, it's an interesting svara, but both Rabbi Yashiv and Rabbi Shmuel Halevi Wozner, both of them hold that if you record a shira b'peh, if people are singing, literally, like, even a non-professional a cappella, but you're recording it, and then you're playing the recording, that is considered a kli zemer. The recording itself is considered kli zemer. They pass in, so they're way machmir. But certainly a professional a cappella that you have to really, really pay attention to see if this is music with instruments and or not. That certainly should be avoided in these days. Again, we're talking about the normal mainstream society. Obviously, a person that has nerves and they are suffering from psychological disorders or the depression and those types of emotional challenges, they should ask a question. There are many times serious leniencies for those cases, and when a person is not doing it to be happy, they're just doing it to survive. It's not, it's not something that they do for being overjoyed, but it's something that they need in order to get by. But again, obviously, as you can imagine, this could be abused a lot. All of a sudden, everyone becomes depressed, and it becomes. I remember when Bet Yosef meat was not a thing really. Like people, a few of us that we were more stringent in the Ashkenazi kashrut world. Bet Yosef was not a thing until they realized that this is actually becoming a large market for a growing market for thing. And I remember I was in the Schlachthouses in the East Coast where I lived and helped with the general kashrut a little bit, but the moment that it became like a business thing, there was a push automatically to say, okay, it's not 10%, but Yosef, all of a sudden it was like 30%, 40%, but Yosef meat coming out that obviously it's, when something is needed, you become more, cognizant and to say it in a mild way, and it becomes more important for people to align themselves with those values. So that same thing is over here. All of a sudden, when there's extenuating circumstances is mutar, everyone becomes depressed and sick and psychological thing. Everyone has a paper from the doctor and so on. So this is not something that you want to abuse. Kedai hu bet Elokenu. It's kedai, the memory of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If you can't mourn a lost relationship, that means the relationship never really existed. It's by the mourning of something that we lost, you actually get access to building a real mamashi relationship, right? So if you can't even stay away from music, obviously it's not a good sign. It's something that we want. It's kedai for this. This is a big deal. Churban Bet HaMikdash is a big deal. And us being in Galut is a big deal. When a person doesn't feel in their bones that we're living in Galut, what's going on around us, as good as you may think in the Jewish frum community, it's not that good. We are still influenced by the Goyim, majorly influenced by the hashkafa of the Goyim with all the garbage of the Western society and so on. And, one time a year, we get to recognize that, to focus on that, to pedestal this topic that we are not happy. We we stay away from music, from dancing, from weddings, from this, from that, in order to impress upon ourselves the idea that this is not a lechatchila way. It's not the real desired way of Jewish life. The desired way would be with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Shechina present in Eretz Yisrael, when we're away from the influence of things that are against the Torah, like the entire film industry and Hollywood and all the Goyish life. Every aspect of it, every last aspect of it, stands in direct contradiction with the Torah. And to think that you're not influenced by that is not living in reality of the world. So, if once a year we want to pedestal that and really, get that energy and the boost that we need to hold our own and go through life like that, it's kedai. That's not the time for looking and seeking for every leniency in the book. You want to do it right, and that's that. So therefore, we stay away from not just dancing. Dancing without music is asur, and music without dancing is asur as well. And Ashim Levad, obviously we're talking about separate dancing and so on. Even that would be a problem. Chas v'shalom, mixed dancing, or when there's without mechitza and so on and so forth. Obviously that would be asur even during the course of the regular days of the year as well. Now, even though the mikaradin, as we'll end with this, in the rest of the year would be mutar to listen to Jewish music that is, broadcast in the radio, whatever it is, or tapes back then, recordings of nowadays. And this is by itself is not so simple, because the Gemara says, this is, a Gemara that is mentioned in different pieces of it, is mentioned in different places in Shas, Gemara in Sanhedrin, Kuf Aleph, Gemara in Sotah, Daf Mem Chet, and so on, that in the time of Gemara in Gittin, Daf Vav and Daf Zayin, that there is a prohibition against listening to music, period. Why is that? The way, again, this is the two ways to learn this in the Rishonim, but the way Rambam learns it and the way the Shulchan Aruch paskins this in Siman Taf Kuf Samech Seif Gimel, is that because of the Churban, because of the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, Chazal came up with a series of takanot for us to go through our lives remembering Yerushalayim. When you build a house, you leave Ama in front of the entrance of the house empty. That every time you come in, is in perfection right in front of you as you enter your house, to remember that house of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is destroyed. Right? When you have a wedding, a big Suda, you leave again an Ama empty. There's no setup on the table, empty of food in a way that's glaring. You see it, you notice it. When women where there's sets of jewelry, if it's a set, you take one piece off. You don't wear the full set. Chatan would put ashes. All these things. Some of them are the minhag nowadays. Some of them are not the minhag nowadays. But in Seif Gimel, there Shulchan Aruch says, and this is again based on the Gemara, that one of the things that Chazal banned because of the Churban was listening to music. Right? So according to Rambam, according to Shulchan Aruch, listening to music year round is asur. Forget about on these 3 weeks, because you have to remember. So the question is really, how in the world is it that our minhag has evolved, that we do listen to music? Obviously, Jewish music. The Ritba, the Meiri write in the Sugya there in Gittin that Goyish music is asur. There's no question about that, especially when the content, the love content, and so on. That's for sure. There's no heter, but even a good music, we talk about shweki and real good content would be according to Shulchan Aruch. So why it is that we are lenient about that? There are 3 or 4 different explanations, and combination thereof is what Chacham Ovadia uses in the Tshuva that he wrote in Yechavedat, why the minhag has evolved to be mekel, and many would tell you that it is actually a positive thing nowadays to have an alternative to that culture that's around us, a strong culture around us. So obviously the minhag is nowadays to be mekel, But the reason I'm saying this backdrop in the background of the halacha is, it's bad enough that we are in a situation that we need to listen to music and so on and so forth. I'm not saying it in a bad way, but we're unable to do what the Shulchan Aruch says to a great degree, but at least we should keep within the boundaries of proper music that elevates our desire to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and in a positive way affects our lives of closeness to Hashem, and so on. But even that, obviously, in these 3 weeks, we stay away from, in respect to our Beit HaMikdash that was destroyed, and we will B'ezrat Hashem start discussing some of the details of this that we left off in the next shiur. Chazak u'baruch.